If you've been lurking in the paranormal corners of the internet long, you've likely come across a number of haunted homes and asylums. But places aren't the only things that can be haunted. These haunted objects bring with them a wealth of misfortunes, creepy new spirits, and the utmost feeling of dread. Some of them are even supposedly cursed. The items on this list are certainly ones you don't want to let through your front door. Their backstories are dangerously gruesome, freaky, and all around just weird. Our recommendation? If you spot one of these haunted items for sale, it's best not to try your luck. Stay away. We are Daily Dope, and you are watching Top 5 Creepiest Haunted Objects of All Time. Robert the Doll is a true ghost story about a haunted doll in a museum in Key West, Florida. The doll is real, and some say it is the subject of an evil curse. Many people claim they have seen it blinking and moving. Take a look at Robert the Haunted Doll. He sits under lock and key in a glass case located in the basement of a museum in Key West, Florida. At first glance, Robert may seem like a harmless children's doll. But looks can be deceiving, because Robert is the most haunted doll in the world. In 1897, a family named Otto lived in a nearby house in Key West. They owned a plantation, and had a lot of servants working for them, who they treated very badly. One servant girl gave Otto's son, named Jean, a present of a doll. What the Ottos didn't realize, was that this servant girl knew voodoo and black magic. Jean's full name was Robert Eugene Otto. His parents had always called him Jean, so he decided to give the doll his real name, Robert. Many strange things began to occur in the Otto household. Neighbors claimed to see Robert moving about from window to window, when the family were out. Jean began to blame Robert for mishaps that would occur. The Ottos claimed to hear the doll giggle, and swore they caught glimpses of the doll running about the house. Jean began to have nightmares and scream out in the night. When his parents would enter the room, they would find furniture overturned, their child in a fright, and Robert at the foot of the bed, with his glaring gaze. The doll was eventually put up into the attic, where he resided for many years. But Robert had other plans. Visitors that entered the house could hear something walking back and forth in the attic, and strange giggling sounds. Guests no longer wanted to visit the Otto home. Jean Otto died in 1972 and the house was sold to a new family. The story of Robert the doll had died down, but Robert waited patiently up in the attic to be discovered once again. The 10-year-old daughter of the new owners was quick to find Robert in the attic. It was not long before Robert unleashed his displeasure on the child. The little girl claiming that the doll tortured her, and made her life a hell. Even after more than 30 years later, she steadfastly claims that the doll was alive and wanted to kill her. Robert, still dressed in his white sailor suit, and clutching his stuffed lion, lives quite comfortably, though well guarded, at the Key West Martello Museum. Employees at the museum say that Robert is still up to his old tricks today. In 1849, a girl from a rich family named Anna Baker fell in love with a low-class iron worker. Anna's father did not want her daughter to marry a man from the lower class. No matter how much Anna begged and pleaded, he refused to let her marry. Anna was deeply in love with him, and even bought a wedding dress in hopes that one day her dreams may come true. But Anna's father, as stubborn as he was, never let her marry her one true love. Anna was so angry with her father that she decided that she would never marry, no matter how many suitors her father would bring to the table. Eventually, by the time her father died, it was too late, and her true love was gone. Anna lived out her days alone and very angry. The servants of the household would sometimes see Anna wearing her wedding dress, and dancing under the moonlight. Anna died old and very bitter in 1914. Eventually the Baker's mansion turned into a museum. Anna's wedding dress was placed in a glass case in her old bedroom. Visitors of the museum constantly report seeing a woman's image looking back at them, when staring through the glass case at Anna's wedding dress. It's as if Anna Baker is still wearing her wedding dress in the afterlife. Visitors of the Baker's museum also report that they can see the wedding dress sway from side to side, within the glass case. From time to time visitors would tell the tour guides that they saw a woman dancing, while wearing a wedding dress within the Baker's estate, making it a very popular place to visit, especially for people looking for proof of life beyond the grave. In early February of 1987, Alan and Debbie Tallman brought home a bunk bed that they purchased at a second-hand shop. They assembled the bed, and stored it in their basement. When the Tallmans moved the bed upstairs in May of 1987, it marked the beginning of 9 months of horror for the family. From the moment the bed was first slept in, the house appeared to be haunted by spirits that terrorized first the children and then the entire family. The children, who were rarely sick before, suddenly became ill for no apparent reason. The night that the family moved the beds upstairs, their son Danny was in the room next to it. After his parents said goodnight to him, his clock radio apparently took on a life of its own. It turned itself on, and randomly switched the channels under its own power. He reported that he saw the radio's vindicator moving itself. However, his parents did not believe him. A few weeks later, Alan was painting the walls in his basement when he went up for lunch. He placed the paintbrush on the table. When he returned, the brush was in the bucket with the bristles sticking up. When the youngest daughter was sleeping in the bunk bed, she claimed that she had seen a red-eyed witch behind her door. She also claimed that she saw fire in her room. A month later, Danny saw the same thing. The family pastor was brought in, and he felt the presence of evil inside the house. The Tallmans continued to be tormented by the entities, doors would bang open and shut, strange voices would call out of nowhere, and ghostly visions persisted. A week before Christmas, Danny again saw something horrifying and told his mother that he wanted to leave. Frustrated, Alan told the spirits to get out of his house. He then said that if they wanted to fight someone, they could fight him. 3 weeks later, at around 2 a.m. on January 7, 1988, Alan returned home from the late shift. Outside the garage, he heard an eerie howling sound, and went to investigate. A voice came out of the howling and said, "Come here." He went around the back to see if anyone was there, but there was no one. He then went back to the garage and saw that it was on fire. He went inside to get a fire extinguisher, but when he came back out, the fire was gone. The garage door was undamaged with no visible signs of recent fire consummation. When Alan got back inside, he went to reach his lunch pail that he had set down, but the entity then threw it across the room. Alan started sleeping in his daughter's room to provide protection. One night, a fog appeared around him. A voice came out of the fog that said, "You're dead." Debbie then called the pastor, because of what had happened to Alan. A few days later, Alan was working late and asked a relative to watch the girls. His relative was a complete skeptic, until that night. The same horrible figure seen by the children appeared, and he let out a loud scream. Debbie then told the relative to get the kids together, and that they were leaving the house forever. 2 weeks later, the Tallmans had the bunk beds destroyed. Afterwards, the Tallmans had no further paranormal experiences. They then concluded that it was the bunk bed, which stored some negative entity, and was responsible for all paranormal activities. This scary-looking painting was kept in Sean Robinson's grandmother's attic, for 25 years before he inherited it from her. She had always told Robinson that the painting was evil, explaining how the artist who created it, had used his own blood mixed with the paint, and had killed himself shortly after completing it. She claimed to hear voices and crying when the painting was displayed, and to see the shadowy figure of a man in her house, which is why she locked it away in the attic. As soon as Robinson took the painting into his home, he and his family started experiencing the same kinds of creepy phenomenon. His son fell down the stairs, his wife felt something stroking her hair, and they saw the shadow man and heard crying. Robinson decided to set up a camera overnight, to try to capture some of the strange events on tape. Robinson's YouTube videos show slamming doors, rising smoke, and the painting falling from a wall for no reason. Watch his YouTube video. Frightened by the happenings, Robinson soon put the painting down in his basement, but he is not interested in selling it. What do you think about the painting? Well, it do seem creepy and horrible to us. While making this video, our editing team had to see this picture for a long time, and they got a severe pain in the head while editing this part. We didn't know what was happening, but these things do work, sometimes. One of the creepiest parts of the truly scary The Conjuring is the evil possessed doll Annabelle, who makes up the cornerstone of Ed and Lorraine Warren's spooky museum of trophies. Director James Wan redesigned Annabelle for the movie, giving her a much more disturbing appearance, but in real life Annabelle was just her run-of-the-mill Raggedy Ann doll. Donna got Annabelle from her mother in 1970. Mom bought the used doll at a hobby store. Donna was a college student at the time, and living with a roommate named Angie, and at first, neither thought the doll was anything special. But over time they noticed Annabelle seemed to move on her own. At first it was really subtle, just changes in position. But the movement increased, and within a few weeks it seemed to become fully mobile. The girls would leave the apartment with Annabelle on Donna's bed, and return home to find it on the couch. Their friend named Lou hated the doll. He thought there was something deeply wrong with it, something evil, but the girls were modern women, and didn't believe that sort of thing. But soon Annabelle's actions got even weirder. Donna began to find pieces of parchment paper in the house with messages written on it. Just to make the whole thing that much creepier, nobody in the house had parchment paper. The escalation continued. One night Donna returned home to find Annabelle in her bed, with blood on her hands. The blood, or some sort of red liquid, seemed to be coming from the doll itself. That was enough. Donna finally agreed to bring in a medium. The sensitive sat with the doll and told the girls that long before their apartment complex had been built, there had been a field on that property. A 7-year-old girl, named Annabelle Higgins, had been found dead in that field. Her spirit remained, and when the doll came into the house, the girl latched onto it. The spirit found Donna and Angie to be trustworthy. She just wanted to stay with them. She wanted to be safe with them. Being sweet, nurturing types, Donna and Angie agreed to let Annabelle stay with them. And that's when the paranormal activities took hellish form. Lou started having bad dreams, dreams where Annabelle was in his bed, climbing up his leg as he lay frozen, sliding up his chest to his neck and closing her stuffed hands around his throat, choking him out. He would wake up terrified, head pounding like all blood had been cut off to his brain. He was freaking out. He was worried about the girls. A few days later he and Angie were hanging out, planning a road trip, when they heard someone moving around in Donna's room. They froze. Was there an intruder in the apartment? Lou crept over to the door, listening to rustling within. He threw open the door, and everything was as it should be, except Annabelle was off the bed, and sitting in a corner. As he approached the doll, Lou was consumed with that feeling, a burning on the back of the neck, that indicates someone was staring at you, and he spun around. Nobody was there. The room was empty. And then sudden pain on his chest. He looked in his shirt, and saw a series of raking claw marks, rough ditches in his flesh that burned. He knew Annabelle had done it. The weird claw marks began healing almost immediately. They were totally gone in 2 days. They were like no wounds any of them had ever seen before. They knew they needed more help, and they turned to an Episcopalian priest, who in turn called in Ed and Lorraine Warren. It didn't take the Warrens long to come to their conclusion. There was no ghost in this case. There was an inhuman spirit, a demon, attached to the doll. But they warned that the doll wasn't possessed. Demons don't possess things, only people. It was clinging to the doll, manipulating it, in order to give the impression of a haunting. The target was really Donna's soul. A priest performed an exorcism on the apartment, and the Warrens took possession of the doll. They put it in a bag, and began the long drive home. Ed agreed to stay off the highways, because there was a concern that the demon might interfere with the car, and at 65 miles an hour that would be disastrous. And sure enough, as they drove on the back roads, the engine kept cutting out, the power steering kept failing and even the brakes gave them trouble. Ed opened the bag, sprinkled the doll with holy water, and the disturbances stopped for the moment. At the Warrens' home, Ed left the doll next to his desk. It began levitating. That happened a couple of times, and then it seemed to just quit, finally laying quiet. But in a couple of weeks, Annabelle was back to her old tricks. She started appearing in different rooms in the Warren home. Sensing that the doll was ramping back up, the Warrens called in a Catholic priest to exorcise Annabelle. The priest didn't take it seriously, telling Annabelle, "You're just a doll. You can't hurt anyone." It was a big mistake. On his way home the priest's brakes failed, and his car was totaled in a horrible accident. He survived though. Eventually, the Warrens built a locked case for Annabelle, and she resides there to this day. The locked case seems to have kept the doll from moving around, but it seems like that whatever terrible entity is attached to it is still there, waiting. Biding its time. Ready for the day when it can again be free. Thanks for watching the video. Comment what you'll want to see next. You can also share your scariest moments in the comments section. Don't forget to like this video, and subscribe to watch more like these. Also, press that notification button, to never miss any update from us.